Hey everyone, welcome to Ajay Discusses Movies, a show in which I discuss movies, both old and new. Today we're discussing a new film that just dropped in the theaters this past weekend, and that movie is titled The Invite, directed by Olivia Wilde. This is Olivia Wilde's third directed film. Her first film was Booksmart, which received rave reviews. Her second film, Don't Worry Darling, was a movie. I think that's the best way you can describe it. I remember discussing Don't Worry Darling with Nathan. We discussed it in the 2021 State of the Film Address. And I remember as soon as we walked out of the theater together, because we both watched the movie together, it required nearly a half an hour discussion outside the strip mall to discuss the craziness that was Don't Worry Darling. And not only was the movie crazy, but the press tour was crazy.
The moments kept coming inside the theater, everybody wondering today, and I cannot believe I'm asking this question, did Harry really spit on Chris? The video going viral, the fans undecided, but the headlines are everywhere.
Stuff happened, and it was insane. However, this is her third directed film. It is adapted from the 2020 film The People Upstairs, and there have been several versions of that Spanish film. And this just so happens to be one of them. I think this is the sixth adaptation of that film. But Olivia Wilde's The Invite stars Olivia Wilde as Angela and Seth Rogen as Joe, as their marriage is not doing that well. They're having some communicative issues, and as a result, it's on thin ice. However, that all changes when they invite Pina and Hawk, played by Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton, respectively, to a dinner party. And in this dinner party, things are revealed, not just in terms of the crazy dynamics between the four of them, but in particular, the relationship between that of, say, Joe and Angela. So, heading into this theater, I had high hopes for this movie. Very, very high hopes. And part of the reason is because I saw the early discussions in regards to this movie, and everybody was supportive of the movie, and they enjoyed it and thought it was funny. So heading into it, I was fully expecting that. I really wanted that. And as I got out of the theater, this film delivered. It's a good movie. I enjoyed it. Bordering on great. Maybe I need a few more rewatches to really settle my opinion in, but after the first viewing of the movie, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it, and I highly suggest and implore you guys to watch this movie as well. So I think this movie is great for a couple of reasons. And one of the main reasons as to why it's such a great movie is because it really delves into the difficulties of human relationships today. And it's able to do that in a tasteful way. And yes, while there is the sort of kinky sexual dynamic that's in play here, I think that was sort of used as a metaphor to further delve into the issues of the relationship between not only that of, say, Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde's character, but even that of, say, Edward Norton and that of, say, Penelope Cruz, especially towards the later end of this film. So, let's start off with the positives, because there's a few positives that I have, and there may be a few negatives that are with the film as well, but let's start off with the positives. So, in terms of this movie, what I really enjoyed was the writing. The writing was easily the best part of this entire film. A lot of times I feel as if films suffer today because there's just a lack of writing that goes along with it. We saw that with Supergirl. There's been tons of movies that have also done moderately well in the box office to being a box office disappointment. And I think part of that is because of the fact that there's just a lack of time invested in the writing of the film. We saw that with Disclosure Day as well. But with this film, you can definitely tell that they really focused in on an airtight script that was able to deliver not just on the comedy, but also in terms of the drama as well. The two writers for this film were Will McCormack and Rashida Jones. When I saw Rashida Jones' name pop up in the opening credits of the film, I was surprised, honestly. I thought, given her cachet, given her relations in the entertainment industry, I thought, hey, Rashida Jones is a person that, given her name, could direct her own film. Why does she need to write? When I saw her name pop up on screen, I was like, oh, this movie wants to be taken seriously, so I'm going to take it as seriously as possible. Because when you have star power of that name for the writing credits, that really changes the mood for what you're about to see. So the writing was amazing in this film, and there are jokes in this film. There are several moments in this film where I just had to audibly gasp and just laugh at, because it was just so hilarious to watch and see it unfold. And I think that is a testament to the writing of Will McCormack and that of, say, Rashida Jones. It's able to deliver on a front in such a refreshing way that even movies that are similar to this in nature and vibe, such as, say, the drama, it was really able to hone in on the comedy and not necessarily let the more metaphorical aspects of the movie and the more sort of crazy esoteric parts of the movie really take a hold. It was able to balance it out in a great way. What I also really enjoyed about this movie was the set design. This film happens entirely in an apartment. And given what we know with apartments, at times, if you think of an apartment, you think it could be contained. You think it can be restraining on not just the characters, but also with what the story is trying to tell you or trying to go for. However, this apartment feels so expansive. And I think that is the mark of Olivia Wilde. And I think it really goes to show you that Olivia Wilde, the cast and crew, were able to really utilize the apartment and use it as a character within the movie. And I think the way in which the apartment is shot, it's amazingly well done. And it feels expansive. It feels limitless. This feels like a play. When you're watching the movie, it feels like a play. It feels like something that could have easily been on Broadway or on off-Broadway. And the fact that it's shot on 35mm film using Panavision, Panaflex cameras, I think really contextualizes the film. When you see the film, it's very grainy. And when you see the grain pop up on screen, it really makes it feel much more homely, much more lively, and feel as if you're in that apartment itself, hearing these conversations take place, hearing this mental battle being there between not just, say, Joe and Hawk, but between both parties involved. So yeah, I thought the set design was amazing, and the way in which it's so tastefully done, and how Olivia Wilde was so meticulous with not just the rugs, not just the record players, not just the way in which she's able to curate what's in the kitchen. All of that, I thought, it would fall on deaf ears and it would fall on blind eyes. But for me, I just couldn't help but notice the amount of attention to detail there was in each and every part of the apartment. In this film, it does feel like a long SNL sketch.
Merry Christmas, Lonnie.
Hey, Merry Christmas, Grandpa.
And when people hear that, they may think it's derogatory. I'm not saying that in that way. I think it's quite complimentary. It's a long bit, and as the movie goes on, it just keeps bubbling up to the point where when that release happens, it really makes you fall head over heels with this movie. So the set design was immaculate. It was great. And the fact that it was done sequentially, the shooting for this movie was done sequentially. I felt that it really elevated the context for watching this film. Because oftentimes movies are not filmed sequentially. They're just shot based off the time, the need. If there's an amount of sunlight that is there on set, they film it adjusting to the sunlight. So most films are not shot sequentially, but the fact that this film was shot in order of events, I think that you can really see it within the characters. So again, I thought that was amazing. So we mentioned the set design. The soundtrack also was tastefully done. It was done by Dev Hynes, and I think the soundtrack really reflected the spastic, chaotic, frenetic energy that was heavily used within this film. Def Hines is great. If you haven't checked out Blood Orange, definitely check out Blood Orange. And he's made several soundtracks before, Palo Alto being one of them. So yes, the soundtrack was great. And the fact that it was being played while dialogue was happening also was hilarious. In a lot of ways, it kind of reminded me of Woody Allen movies and how at times the music would just be blaring as you're hearing these conversations take place. And even that of, say, the Safdie brothers in a lot of ways, where you hear music and the tone of the music can kind of let you know as to how you should treat that scene in particular. It's great. I thought if you're able to use music as a guide for how the audience can feel, all the more better. So yeah, the music was amazing. The soundtrack was great. And again, it bears repeating, but this film would fall flat on its face without the performances. The performances are what hold the film together. Olivia Wilde is good. Obviously, she's the director, so she would have a meaty role, and you can definitely understand her point of view, her perspective in regards to how she views the relationship with Seth Rogen. But also, I felt as if Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz were great in this film, and they really added the more comedic elements in ways that I didn't really expect going into the film. You can definitely tell this is a film that Edward Norton sought after, because he is just a ball of charisma within this movie. And a lot of times when you're dealing with a performance of this nature, with a role of this nature, it can easily fall flat on its face. And there can be times in which the person that's acting in the film, that's delivering that character, may not be aware of what they're trying to do, or be self-aware enough to the point where they're not in on the joke. But with Edward Norton, he's just so likable that he knows what the character's trying to offer. And I think that that is a very important line to walk on, because a lot of times actors would fall flat on their face when being within that role. But I would definitely say that the standout is Edward Norton, easily. Without him, I don't think that this film would have done as good as it is right now, critically. Now, we'll talk about the negatives and why I think A24 kind of ruined the release of the movie by putting it in the summer a week before the Odyssey, releasing it on the same day as Evil Dead Burn and Moana, but we'll get into that for negatives. But let's talk about more of the positives. We'll get into spoiler territory here, so just fair warning, you've been warned. These are parts of the movie that I did enjoy, that I felt we should spend a little bit more time talking about. When the souffle went straight from the oven to the trash, that was hilarious. In the beginning of the film, Olivia Wilde is hyping up her souffle. She's telling Joe, played by Seth Rogen, how much both Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz would love it. And by the time they show up to the apartment, she forgets that the souffle is in the oven. So they're having this long conversation, and they bring the flan, and the flan is so tasty that when they go back into the kitchen, Olivia Wilde just opens the oven, takes the burnt souffle, and throws it in the trash without even addressing that she's doing that. And granted, I watched this with less than 15 people, but in unison, we were laughing at that moment. And again, it really goes to show you the comedic instincts of that of, say, Olivia Wilde. And just how smart and wise both Will McCormack and Rashida Jones were in delivering the script to her. So yeah, I thought that was hilarious. Another moment in which the film was also quite funny was when Edward Norton's character Hawk decides to show the Ring people footage of Seth Rogen at their doorstep. Now, to add more context to the scene, Joe, played by Seth Rogen, is upset at his neighbors because they're having a loud, gratuitous amount of, intercourse happening in their apartment, and he is very upset about it because, again, he has a family, he has a wife and a daughter, and it perturbs them. So he decides to go to their apartment to address it and to put an end to it. However, he's afraid. He's afraid to confront them, and essentially there was a ring footage at the people of Seth's ordeal, of Joe's ordeal, of whether or not he should address what they're doing or not. And he steps over, trips and falls over something that was on the ground, and it was absolutely hilarious. And when that ring people footage was shown, and the lead up, the build up to showing that ring people footage was shown, it was great. I loved it. And again, another moment in the film in which it was hilarious was when it's revealed that they want to explore the relationship by having both Penelope and Edward Norton there. And when both Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz both propose the idea of exploring polygamy with both Olivia Wilde and Seth Rogen, when Seth Rogen and Penelope Cruz go into the music room, I'll call it the music room, and they're smoking a J, having some fun, and they're going to the point where they're undressing. Seth Rogen says to Penelope Cruz, "Thank you so much for this," which is what anybody would do if they were in the presence of Penelope Cruz in that situation. But I thought that was hilarious. I really did. Other moments in which I thought were hilarious is when it's revealed that Edward Norton's character Hawk, his real name was Howard, short for Howie. That entire moment when it's revealed, great. Also, there was a little bit of physical comedy that was in it. I mean, very much a Charlie Chaplin-esque comedy that was in it when Seth Rogen, as he's about to make love to Pina, trips and falls over, and his back gets hurt. And he yells and squeals, and he starts yelling out, "My back, my back, my back," as he enters into the living room. It was hilarious. Now, was it definitely longer than it should have been? To a certain extent, yes, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was great. I'm smiling as I'm talking about the film. So if that doesn't show you just how much I enjoy this film, well, I don't know what else to tell you. But yes, I mean, this is a good film. I highly suggest you check it out. And Olivia Wilde is definitely able to wear her Mike Nichols influence on her sleeve. And I think that's the best part about it, this movie, is that you can definitely tell that she was able to have such a reverence for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, but was able to take parts of that film and modernize it to today's time. And, again, this I think is in line with the dramedies that we've seen, not just within A24, but for the past year or so. And again, credit where credit is due. You got to give The Materialist its credit because it really opened the door for movies of this nature to not just be shown in theaters, but to have individuals take an interest in it. So yes, I would say that definitely this movie was influenced by the Mike Nichols and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, but at the same time, Olivia Wilde is able to make it entirely her own. And I think that in itself is a success story. So those were parts that I liked, and those were my positives. I'm gushing about this film. So when I deliver the negatives, just know that more or less it's just my own personal nitpicks and gripes with the movie. It has nothing to do with any sort of negative that other people may have, but these were just some negatives that I had in regards to the movie that I felt that I sort of needed to address. So again, we're still in spoilers, so again, skip to whatever time. But I would say a negative that I had in regards to this movie is that the reveal of Hawk and Pina's proposal of exploring the dynamic and relationship between Joe and Angela, that happened a little later than expected. If you watched the trailer, or if you were able to read up on the movie before you watched it in the theater, you sort of understand what the movie's about. But for me, it felt as if it happened a little later than expected. And yes, the build-up is great, but I would have wanted that to occur the reveal to occur a little earlier than expected. Now, again, that's just my personal nitpick on the movie. It didn't change my overall viewing experience. I still enjoy the movie, but I just wanted it to happen a little earlier. And even though it's an hour and 47-minute film, you can definitely trim parts of the beginning of the movie where we're establishing the dynamic between Joe and Angela, their relationship, how it's a bit combative and at times argumentative. That was fairly established, and I thought that was good. But there were times in which there were a few lines of dialogue where it could easily just take it out. Yes, it served the context of the relationship, but I felt as if it would have done well without those lines in particular. I felt as if the relationship would have still been there and still been readily seen and still been established without the more stretched out lines that were used in the beginning of the film. Now, again, that's just my personal gripe. It's an hour and 47-minute film, and there were times in which I was checking my phone. Again, not out of pure boredom, just because I was saying, oh, it's taking a little longer than expected. So I feel as if you can trim like 5 minutes from the beginning of the film, and it wouldn't have changed the overall film. But again, these are just my personal gripes, so again, just take it with a grain of salt. And again, I think one of the reasons as to why this film could have been doing better in the box office because, and I mentioned this before, I've alluded to this before, A24 really botched the marketing and rollout and release for this movie. The studio is at blame for why this film is not doing as good as it should be doing right now. It should be doing better, in all honesty. And again, the fact that they released it the week before the Odyssey, the fact that they released it on the same day as two films with several films within their canon, Moana, the live-action Moana, as well as, say, Evil Dead Burn, which is a part of the Evil Dead universe that Sam Raimi has concocted, who obviously has given over the reins to other promising, aspiring directors, which has gone on him. I think A24 should have released this in the fall because it's getting buzz. It's getting award buzz, and I wouldn't be shocked if it was nominated for a Critics' Choice Award, for a Golden Globe Award. I don't know about Oscars. It's a little too far out for that, for Oscar talk, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was nominated for awards later on in the awards season. But I think part of the reason as to why there hasn't been that much discussion in regards to the film is because it was released in the summer, where everyone's out and about, and the only films that they have an interest in watching are the summer blockbuster films such as Spider-Man Brand New Day and that of, say, the Odyssey. This entirely falls on A24. A24 needs to do a better job marketing this film, and this has been an issue that has been prevalent within that studio for quite some time now. It's already been quite a bad few months for A24 PR-wise. Apparently, they've partnered with an AI company.
So, A24 just accepted a $75 million investment from Google's DeepMind to develop new and vague AI-powered technologies for filmmakers. I don't think I'm a cynical guy, but whenever I see a press release saying we're gonna empower artists with authentic AI storytelling, I start to get a little skeptical. Now, for those of us paying attention, this isn't really a surprise because even 2 years ago, they were using AI-generated posters to market Civil War.
Which, to see a once promising independent studio now partnered with AI, really, it leaves you with a sour taste in your mouth, honestly. And it was kind of a betrayal amongst their fan base to partner with such grossly used company within not just entertainment, but throughout the world. Any company that uses AI as their main reason for getting income, I think should be untrustworthy and should be banished from society. That might be a stretch at the end, but I truly do believe that if you use AI and that's the main reason as to why your company is burgeoning or why your company is successful, you should definitely rethink your own morals and principles, because that is so gross. So yeah, those were the only negatives. A lot of my negatives, or most of my negatives concerned around the marketing of the movie. So that really goes to show you that this movie is good. So definitely go watch it. Definitely go check it out at your local theater. And above all, watch it with your friends. Watch it with buddies of yours, because I do think in a lot of ways comedy, just like horror, work in a packed setting. When you're there in unison, watching it all unfold, it hits the same as a horror movie. You're both reacting to the movie in the same exact way. A good comedy movie, just like a good horror movie, when something happens on screen, when there's a funny line, or when there's a shocking, terrifying scene that happens on screen, you react to it in real time with your friends, with those that you love, and in a packed setting. It makes it all that much more better. I remember watching Eddington in theaters, and watching it on a packed Saturday night really enhanced my viewing pleasure in regards to that movie. So, yes, go watch this movie. It is good. It bordering on great, and this is redemption for Olivia Wilde. I mean, I did not expect her to create a film of this nature after Don't Worry, Darling. I really didn't. And this is a hilarious film that was made to be humorous, as opposed to Don't Worry, Darling, where, yes, it was humorous in certain ways, but at times you're just like, okay, I'm laughing at the film, not so much with the film. This is an entirely different shift from that. You're laughing with the film because of the pure insanity and the unfolding of events that happen within it.
You know, my favorite thing about the movie is, like, it feels like a movie. It feels like a real, like, you know, go to the theater film movie.
So I thought this movie was tastefully done. And again, I think that the reveal in and of itself really goes to show that when it comes to relationships, this film, even though it's dealing with raunchy sexual topics and stuff of that nature, I feel as if it sort of offers a metaphor for relationships in general, and about the importance to communicate, the openness and willingness to listen to one another. And obviously, I'm not trying to pry into Olivia Wilde's personal life. That's her personal life. But I felt like she was able to use her personal life, her struggles in the past few years, and was able to use this film as her therapy session to address what was in those relationships. And I thought that that was a great way to handle that fiasco. So yeah, Olivia Wilde, she's back in the good graces of cinema and of the average moviegoer, and I think that's a good thing to know. And again, Olivia Wilde, one of the OG anti-Zionist voices out there. I remember watching Booksmart, and there was a scene in which there was a Free Palestine poster on it. And again, this was filmed back in like 2018, 2019. So this was back when discussions around that conflict were not readily seen on social media. So again, she's one of the OG anti-Zionist people out there. So credit to Olivia Wilde for having a backbone and having a moral compass and having a stance. I really do appreciate that. So anyways, guys, that is it for me. That is it for this discussion. Again, it's a good film, bordering on great. Again, I may have to watch it a second or third time to really establish my view on the movie, but go watch this movie. I highly suggest you guys check it out. It's funny, but also it does offer a message in terms of how you should address your relationships and how you should be with your partner. Does the film end ambiguously? I don't think so. I think by the end of the film, you see that Joe and Angela are able to work out their marriage. And I think that in a time like this, in a time of cynicism, pessimism, and people that are just so willing to take the black pill, having a movie that ends on a positive note, I'm happy about that. It's the summer too, so you need a little bit of happiness and light at the end of the tunnel, and I think that this film really offers that. So yes, congrats to Olivia, congrats to Will McCormack, Rashida Jones, the cast and crew behind this movie, Dev Hynes, for making a film that will stand the test of time, because I do think that this film is good, bordering on great, and I highly suggest you check it out. So yeah, other than that, that has been our discussion. What are your thoughts, your opinions on this movie? I'm probably going to be back next week talking about the Odyssey. If not, maybe with a guest, who knows. But yes, that is it for this podcast. I hope it was fun, enjoyable, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.